When we talk about so-called religious freedom laws that people use to discriminate based on their self-professed, completely arbitrary, so-called, sincerely held religious beliefs, we often talk about unintended consequences, right? Religious freedom allowing discrimination against the Christians who want the law could happen. Hey, my religion says no Christians allowed. That could happen even though Christians passed that law. We talked recently about the RFRA bill that was passed in Indiana, and it may have opened the door for the First Church of Cannabis. Paperwork has been filed for the First Church of Cannabis with the Indiana Secretary of State's office. The church founder, whose name is Bill Levin, announced on his Facebook page that the church's registration was approved. And the question now is what is going to happen based on a church whose religious values involve smoking pot, even though marijuana is not legal in Indiana. Indiana attorney Abdul Hakim Shabazz was asked about this, and he says, listen, it is illegal to smoke pot in Indiana, but, quote, I would argue that under RFRA, as long as you can show that weed is part of your religious practices, you've got a pretty good shot of getting off scot-free. The RFRA, remember, spells out this test as to whether the government would unduly burden a person's faith by getting involved. And if you look at the situation around weed in a religion, religious belief says, hey, we smoke pot, and the pot smoking is less damaging than alcohol, it's less damaging than cigarettes. You could make a pretty good case that the government stepping in and preventing the free exercise of religion by banning the church from smoking pot would not be the least restrictive measure to be used here. So I think that there's a very, very good case here. And it's really funny to me how the entire religious conservative movement is sort of like the poster movement for unintended consequences. They don't want abortion, right? They try to ban abortion, but that only leads to people getting back alley abortions that are actually endangering the mother as well. They don't want abortion, but they ban reasonable same-sex education, access to contraception. What does that do? It increases the number of pregnancies, which leads to more abortion. They don't want to spend money on welfare programs, so they cut them, which has huge costs. It increases poverty, it increases crime, thus increasing the amount spent by the government and thus their tax dollars. This is the opposite movement. The religious conservative movement in the US is taking steps that ensure the opposite of what they want is actually what happens. It's amazing. It really is amazing. And I don't know if they realize it and don't care, or if they're just too ignorant to even see what they're doing.